Well, it's mango season, and my family and I love to binge on the fruit. Well, not just the fruit, but also its usual flavor derivatives, right? Like mango ice cream, mango cheesecake, mango lassi. Especially mango lassi, actually. The bottled ones from dairy retailers? That's right. But last week, our latest purchase came with a rude surprise. In the paper bag, it looked just like any other bottle, neatly sealed, within its expiry date, delivered at my doorstep in 10 minutes from Zepto's nearest dark store. When I held it though, the bottle looked oddly swollen. Here's what happened next. When I uncapped it, the liquid inside erupted, frothing out with the force of a shaken soda. It was over-fermented, undrinkable, perhaps even dangerous.
Some weeks back, I had crumbly frozen snacks, literally crumbs, biscuit packs of two very large brands, which were again all broken, a frayed pack of pulses, which had spilled onto the entire bag in which the delivery was sent. I mean, this has happened on and off over, months.
That's my colleague and ET's top retail reporter, Ratna Bhushan.
Of course, I raised the complaint to Instamart immediately, and they did address it by replacing the entire order. But why did it happen in the first place? I mean, it's not done. It's not fair.
Yes, it's absolutely not. And this is an issue that has become more and more rampant in the last few months.
The biggest one is near-expiry or even expiry date deliveries. There have been instances when a consumer has ordered a 5 kg pack of edible oil or atta, or sugar, and the pack has come with an expiry date in the next 3 to 4 days. How does this consumer react? You can't consume 5 kg of something in 3 days, right?
Right. And it's impacted all kinds of customers. Recently, actress Kubra Seth put up an Instagram video after she was delivered stale, moldy bread by Swiggy Instamart. Well, the platform and the bread maker were quick to react, apologies were given, as were promises of rectification. Seth archived that video
that I made this morning about the bread and the mold
but she made another video saying that, well, this was a really serious issue.
I went into a mega spiral, boss. And that was not fun, okay? Because this is the food that I eat and it's important to me.
And then there have been disturbing reports of a human finger in ice cream and a dead mouse in a sealed chocolate syrup container. In a survey of 40,000 people carried out by community platform Local Circles in April, a whopping 38% said that the packaged food they purchased was infested with insects, fungus, etc. And this isn't just bad news for the quick commerce companies, but also the brands whose products they are delivering. In the same survey, 58% of the respondents said that they are likely to avoid a brand or FMCG company whose products they found problematic. And well, it most often is not the fault of that company. The problem is that in India's rapidly growing world of 10-minute groceries and invisible dark stores, there's a hidden risk festering behind the convenience. Hygiene failures that could be making their way into your refrigerator. So, in today's episode, we dive into the unseen health hazards lurking in your grocery bag. It's Tuesday, the 10th of June. I'm Anirban Chowdhury, and this is the Morning Brief. First, let's understand the cycle of how quick commerce works, from dark store to delivery. Now, companies like Zepto and Blinkit usually work directly with FMCG brands, wholesalers, and local aggregators to procure products. Depending on the SKU or stock keeping unit, say Amul Milk, Tata Salt, or Nestle Maggi, they either receive goods directly from the brand's regional distributor or through a national logistics aggregator. On the other hand, perishables like fruit, vegetables, and dairy are usually sourced daily from local mandis, FPOs or farmer producer organizations, or cold chain suppliers. That's step 1. Step 2, goods arrive at the e-commerce platform's central fulfillment center or mother warehouse, which are often located on the outskirts of major metros. This is where the platforms are supposed to check for quantity and batch validation, product integrity, especially for perishables, expiry and manufacturing dates, and damage or tampering. From here, inventory is disaggregated, usually based on demand heat maps, and pushed to individual dark stores or local micro warehouses. And here is where things start to get problematic. So, step 3, dark store. These are hyperlocal fulfillment centers around 1,000 to 2,000 square feet in size, stocked with 2,000 to 4,000 high demand SKUs. Each of these dark stores usually deliver to addresses within 2 kilometers radius of themselves. What are the key activities there? Well, storage, or items shelved by temperature and type, ambient, cold, frozen. Here's where the first bit of lapses happen, but more on this later. Then things are stored to follow something called FIFO, or first in, first out. This is a protocol to avoid expired goods. Here's also where a lot of lapses happen. Once an order comes, the items are assorted in an exercise called order picking. Now, this is done in super tight 90-second loops. Then there are QC or quality control checks. These are the final scans that are done at the packing station. This includes expiry dates, tamper-proof packaging, and weight before an order is finally dispatched and transported to the customer. And this step, the QC, is where most hygiene lapses happen, especially if cold chains are broken or pickers are undertrained or overburdened, as they usually are. Clearly, dark stores, and the name is really apt in this context, are the problem, as is the pace of quick commerce operations and growth. Here's Ratna again.
So first, I think it's very rapid growth amid surging consumer demand, which has led to many such dark stores being franchised. The moment this happens, day-to-day monitoring and close control by the company, that that diminishes because it's with a franchise, right? So the focus seems to be on speed and not on at the back end. That's where the problem is. A recent report by HSBC said that quick commerce platforms would end this financial year with anywhere between 5,000 to 5,500 dark stores. The number was 4,500 last year. So the number of stores are, increasing very rapidly, and they're being franchised, which is where the problem lies, number one.
And is there a number, is there a percentage of how many are franchised and how many are sort of self-operated or something?
I think there's no specific number because it varies from platform to platform. But I'm given to believe that especially in smaller markets, smaller towns, and all these companies have called out smaller markets as, the core growth markets, because that's where they are getting in potential consumers, they are getting in first, mover advantage. So that's where a lot of franchise is happening. And that's where the compliances may not be so controlled.
Understood.
That's the issue. And the second point, Anirban, is the speed and scale to deliver within 10 minutes. So is that speed coming at the cost of due diligence? Someone was telling me that the order comes on the app. The guy just picks up the first pack of sugar or whatever is on the order, and it's not his job to look at the expiry date or whether the pack is frayed or where it was, whether it's dusty. He just puts it in the bag and he's at the consumer's doorstep within whatever 7-8 minutes. And the third is we're talking of orders that are very, very complex. It's the most complex with the highest degree of SOPs which are needed for storage and handling. A very large frozen foods company CEO was telling me that frozen foods and ice cream require different storage and handling. Cheese requires separate temperature control. Biscuits are fragile. There's no one size fits all. So they all have to be stored, very differently. They have to be transported very differently. He was also telling me that, mosquito repellents and floor cleaners, for example, need to be stored very far from foods in these
Hmm.
dark stores,
Hmm.
right? And in neighborhood stores, like we all continue to go to mom and pop stores, there the stocks are visible to us in front of us. If we see, for example, a broom next to a biscuit, we will not buy it, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But in
Hmm.
a dark store, we just don't know. So this is where the problem is. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So this has to be fixed on a ward footing.
Got it. But you spoke about SOPs. Is there an absence of SOPs? That seems to be the case.
I mean, on paper it's there, but
Hmm.
is it being implemented and executed? And is that implementation and execution taking a back seat in favor of speed? That is the
Yeah.
issue.
I mean, ideally, the platforms of the world should draw up their SOPs in consultation with the product companies because they know best. But is that happening? That consultation between the original source of the product and the guys who store and deliver it? No, right?
Yeah, it is happening on a case to case basis. Like the Britannia CEO, I'm naming him because he was okay to come on
Right.
record. He said, when I deliver my cheese to a dark store, I have an SOP because cheese cannot be left ambient and it cannot be frozen. There has to
Mm.
be a mid temperature at which it has to be stored. At the dark store, they accept it with the SOPs. Beyond that, then my role is done, right? But what happens later is something which is where all this problem is coming.
Correct, correct, got it, got it. What is the regulatory gap here?
There are no regulatory loopholes, but the problem is in implementing. Last year, FSSAI had brought out this mandate that all quick commerce platforms should monitor best before and expiry dates. That is in place, right? Is it being implemented? That is the issue. We all know what happened in a very large Blinkit warehouse in Hyderabad. But that was one incident. After that, last week, this happened with Zepto. In between, we did not hear at all of audits. So why? Why are the audits so infrequent? That's the thing. So it is not only bad for business, it is absolutely unforgivable for the platform because they're the ones who are going to sort of, you know, pay for this. And in terms of reputation, in terms of loss. And I also know, after this Zepto incident, there was a lot of chatter in my society of people going back to the neighborhood kirana. So that's not something that these platforms want. They are backed by billion-dollar funds. They have a lot of money riding on them. They have a lot of investors, and they've invested in dark stores, in warehouses.
True. But tell me, apart from what you just mentioned peripherally, have the quick commerce platforms, you must have reached out to them, told you of any two, three specific steps that they're taking to curb this?
Yes, they have told me that irrespective of audits and raids, it's the dark store which is the biggest focus area, like the lifeline, right? It's where the consumer is interacting directly. So this is the only focus area for them because they've got consumers hooked. They've got companies hooked, all large listed companies, whether it's Tata Consumer or a Nestle or an HUL or a
Hmm.
Britannia. In every earnings call, they are calling out on quick commerce and how it is redefining, their sales. They are introducing special packs for quick commerce. They have special teams. Earlier, there were teams for quick commerce and e-commerce together. Now they have separate teams only for quick commerce. But
Right.
now the issue is the dark store.
Hmm.
So the dark side of the dark store needs a lot of light, if I may just say so.
Right. Final two-prong question. Has there been a significant backlash from the FMCG companies on this? And how do you when do you see this sort of being sorted out in next 2, 3 weeks? Or do you see it as a deeper problem to sort out.
Yeah, for the first time, FMCG companies have come on record calling out quick commerce delivery experiences. This had not happened before. So, in the story, also, I was very pleasantly surprised when, a lot of companies, CEOs, and executives called it out that this is non negotiable. This is our brand. We are paying commissions. We need storage and handling better because our brand is the one which is going to the consumer. So, yes, they've asked for urgent action. Again, a very large dairy company's chief told me, and he wanted to be anonymous. So he told me that I have myself reached out to the leadership of Zepto to ask them like what's going on, because I have premium, packs of dairy which I'm giving you. When you accept them in perfect condition, and there are SOPs, but you have to. I mean, and you're doing a great thing by enabling discoverability, reach, but if this is the backstory, then it has to be fixed very urgently. So they've said, irrespective of any FSSAI, any FDA, you sort this out. And this is the first time, like I said, the companies are directly calling out in public domain, calling out these platforms to fix the issues.
Right, and I hope it yields some results, especially for consumers like you and me, Ratna. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Anirban.
So, until there are fixes that Ratna spoke about, how can you and I be more careful to make sure that we aren't consuming harmful packaged food? To understand this, I spoke to Dr. Arun Gupta, convener of the think tank Nutrition Advocacy for Public Interest. I first gave him my example of the volcanic lassi and asked him how it could have harmed me had I consumed it.
Medically, I think the consuming over-fermented or not very well stored products like lassi, it can certainly lead to some gastrointestinal disturbances like diarrhea or flatulence, that kind of feelings inside. Sometimes even vomiting also, depending upon if there is a bacterial infection if there is a bacterial infection in the food product, then I think it's serious matter. Then like salmonella bacteria could grow in the milk product especially. I would be more concerned if there is a bacterial infection.
Correct,
So,
correct.
yeah.
What are the key indicators that consumers should watch out for in such products? I mean, how can they be more careful and insulate themselves from illnesses, and how can they increase their checks and balances? Clearly, it's not just the expiry date.
Yeah, I agree with you. For example, if a cold chain is broken at the back, right? So then the food inside the packet may not be safe. Hygiene at the point of sale, or as you described, the bloated can. And
Correct.
so these are actually this signs according to me is like, one is this bloating, curdling, foul smelling, and sometimes the texture of the product is changed, which you normally see. Then one should think about that this is something wrong somewhere and try and avoid that. And if more vigilant you are, then I would say report to them to the labs for testing or something, so that companies are also held accountable, which are serving as well as which are manufacturing. So people can only be vigilant, I would say, but the safety systems are not very good in my view.
Correct. And so that brings me to my last question, actually, Doctor. This
Hmm.
is the latest in a line of several instances of neglect when it comes to food safety, be it, putting up, front of package labeling on what the
Hmm.
contents are, sugar, etc., too much protein in baby foods, faulty mixture in spices, etc. We've seen so many instances of that in India. Do you
Hmm.
think we are not learning our lessons?
I think we are not taking it seriously when it comes to food safety. To my mind, the system is not strong enough to that it should be actually, because it concerns each one's health, and especially the vulnerable populations, which includes children, which includes people who are on drugs, immunocompromised, old people. They suffer the worst, and it is hardly noticed. So the preventive part of this is missing in my view. For example, education of the manufacturers, handlers, in terms of regular checks, regular monitoring systems, especially in the milk products. The
Correct.
milk products are more prone to get bacterial contamination if they are not handled properly at the time of before packaging, for example. So regular checks, I think, should be a norm rather than a specialty.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Gupta, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Like Ratna said, audits, raids, and punitive actions are sporadic. In another recent example of those, the Maharashtra FDA has reportedly flagged Blinkit's dark store in Pune for operating without a food safety license. But are these enough is the question. Dark stores may be invisible to the consumer, but the consequences of their hygiene failures are anything but. In the rush for speed, we may be overlooking safety. My over-fermented mango lassi was in fact a warning sign in a bottle. As India's quick commerce boom continues to reshape how we buy our basics, perhaps it's time to ask, what's the real cost of convenience? And is our health part of the bargain? That's it for today. This episode was produced by me, sound designed by Amrit Reggie. A new episode of The Morning Brief drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on a listening platform of your choice. This is your host Anirban Chowdhury signing off. Have a good remainder of the week. The clip used in this episode belongs to its owner. Credits are mentioned in the description.